I was terrified that if Superman 2025 failed, that DC in movies, or DC in general, and like the public view, would be over. But now that I've seen Superman 2025, I'm glad to say that DC's back. I'm glad to say that DC's back, okay? This movie was great. Super, even. I came in the theater, I walked in the theater, a little nervous, to be fair. When I walked out, I was like, okay, the future is looking bright, you know? I'm gonna have to start wearing sunglasses inside, because the future is looking too bright, you know? But yeah, the Superman movie was pretty good. So, I'm gonna talk about the things that I did like about it, which is, there are a lot of things I did like about it. And I'll be talking about the things I didn't like about it, which, you know, are few, but I think they're still worthy of talking about. First up, we have the costume design. Now, you may be wondering, okay, Lohan, you made a few videos talking about the costume design, you know? You like the Superman suit, you like the Mr. Terrific suit, but you didn't really like the Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl suit. I can say that, you know, even though I would have preferred for them to have their more comic accurate suits and not have these uniforms made by Maxwell Lord, I don't hate them. In the movie, I did not hate them. I was kind of hating, you know. Even before I watched the movie, I was looking back at those videos, I was like, huh. I actually don't hate those suits as much as I said I did. I don't know why. I guess I was just kind of looking at it out of like a comic accurate lens, which is fair. But I didn't hate them. You know, for what they were in the movie, I would have preferred them to have the more comic accurate suits. But what they did with the suits, it wasn't bad, you know. And especially the Superman suit. I even said that one was good before I watched the movie. And my opinions on that suit have not changed at all. That suit is fantastic. It is so good. It is great. Like, the logo, I mean, I'm people like, oh, it's Kingdom Come, you know, whatever. It's such a good suit. And the trunks too. I'm glad they had the trunks too. And I'm really glad that they weren't like the shorter ones that he has in the comics. I feel like those kind of like more comic accurate trunks, I don't think those can really be adapted into live action and work well. So I'm glad they went for the more longer ones, like kind of more like shorts. I'm glad they went with that, because I don't think anyone could really pull off the more comic accurate trunks look. But what they did, it was great, you know, it was fantastic. I love this suit. I love how bright it is. It feels like Superman. It really feels like Superman. Of course, we have the MCU, like, random lines, but they're so faint that they aren't distracting. It's like, they're like accents. They're meant to be accents, but in a lot of modern comic book movie suits, they're so visible that it kind of clutters up the design. I'm glad that they're more faint here, so that they're what they are, they're accents, you know? Great suit overall, you know, Mr. Terrific. I love how comic accurate the Mr. Terrific suit is, while still being a uniform, you know? I would probably prefer not to be a uniform, but it's good regardless. And not just the suits designs. The civilian clothes for characters like Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen, characters like that, the costumes for them are relatively comic accurate too, and they fit the characters very well. I don't really think you need to be comic accurate with like civilian clothes, but I really do like that Lois wears purple. I really do like that. That was a good touch. That was a good touch. I do like that she has black hair, you know. In the DCU Superman, she didn't have black hair for some reason. She had like brown hair. Even though it's like a minor point. These subtle little details, they like signal to fans that the movie respects the fan base. I can't say I hate it. I cannot say I hate it. Next point is the color grading. This movie is very, very bright, and that is not a bad thing. It's really a good thing, because, you know, this is Superman, so it really should be bright and full of color, which is just representative of what Superman is supposed to represent, which is, you know, hope, and, you know, like he's saying, like, just truth, justice, and a brighter tomorrow. I think that's the new one. It was the American way before, but now it's a brighter tomorrow, and that is really shown in this movie through, you know, things such as the color grading. It's very bright, you know, brighter tomorrow. Unlike, you know, that's all I have to really say about it. I do like the fact that it is really bright, and there's a lot of colors in it. Next up, we have some of the characterizations in the movie. They're all really good. First of all, talking about Jimmy Olsen, I do like the fact that he was a little bit of a ladies' man. I don't know how else to describe it. I don't think that's the right way to describe it. Like how, you know, all those two interns at the Daily Planet, like, oh, Jimmy Olsen, you know? That was a good touch, you know, in the comics, you know. He did go on a few adventures, to say the least. And if we have Guy Gardner, him in this movie, it was so good. It was so good, you know. Every scene he was in, it was like he was just pissed off at everyone. Like, I can't even put into words how good it was. Like, that is the best job they could have done with Guy Gardner. Like, genuinely. He was just great in this movie. And making all the construct of the middle finger, that was really good, you know. You know, I like to see when, you know, characters in the Green Lantern mythos are adapted, you know, well. Green Lantern fans have had, you know, a rocky past with DC movies, so I'm just happy that there's a good Green Lantern adaptation in at least a single movie. And it seems like all the actors are really fans of the characters they're playing. I've seen all the clips of them talking about the DC universe, you know, like they know all this, like not obscure, all these DC lore bits, and it's really good to see actors actually be fans or even just like knowledgeable on it in general, you know, even if they're not fans of it. It's good that, you know, they're at least knowledgeable on the source material, you know. His name is Nathan Fillion. He did a great job. He was the greatest person you could have got for this role. And next we have the main two characterizations I wanted to focus on. We have Superman. Now, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, he was too like casual and jokey, you know. It might be because I haven't read a lot of Superman comics, but the way I see Clark in comics is like he doesn't feel like a regular person, or he doesn't feel like a natural kind of person. He feels like I can feel him putting on an act to be Clark Kent, you know. Maybe that's not true. I don't know. That's just how I see it. But in this movie, it really felt like he was like integrated into human society. He felt like another person, you know. I don't know if that helps or hurts the whole Clark Kent Superman dichotomy, but I really felt like him being more casual, being like, dude, I felt like that was a good thing because it showed that he, despite him being an alien, he really is human, you know. You know, there was this one point where Superman was, you know, kind of getting a little angry, you know, not very Superman-like, which I'll get into later, but I don't think that was a bad decision. I think it was misplaced in the movie, which I'll talk about later. Overall, Superman being more casual speaking, I think that was the right decision. I don't think I would have preferred him to be a lot more stoic. I don't think that would have really worked, or I think it works better when he's like more casual, more upbeat, I guess. I don't know how to describe it, but I think they did a pretty good job of writing Superman's personality into this movie. Moving on to Lex, I really like this Lex interpretation because, again, I haven't read a lot of Superman comics, so this could be just like me trying to force my opinions on this character I don't really know a lot about. But to me, Lex works best when he is like very well-spoken, very, very calm, very collected person on the outside, but on the inside he really is like obsessed with Superman. He's really like he's like crazy, you know. On the inside, in Dawn of Justice, you can definitely tell that Lex had a few screws loose, you know, with the whole God complex thing. I don't even know what was going on in that movie, in Man of Steel. Was that Man of Steel? No, it was Batman v Superman. I don't really know what that was, but you could definitely tell that he was like, there was something going on with him. You could definitely tell. But in this movie, I like the fact that he appeared kind of like calm and collected, but when you really look into like who he is, like the whole like the 1A thing, that felt like his inner hatred and his obsession with Superman coming out and overpowering his outward appearance. That was pretty good. I did like that. Interpretation, or the way of conveying his feelings towards Superman, you know. I did like that a lot. And finally, for the positives, we have James Gunn's comedic style. Now, I've seen a couple of James Gunn movies, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy, but with a lot of superhero movies, they either go in two directions. They either go way too comedic or way too serious. The modern MCU is like a great example of the way too comedic. Like every single MCU character in like the modern MCU is like a wisecracking joke machine. In the DCEU, all the characters are like so serious, kind of like more violent at times. In this movie, I think James Gunn does a good job at having the movie not be too serious, but not be too jokey. The movie is funny, but not every character is funny. The Mr. Terrific, you know, the crypto thing, Mr. Terrific isn't like a funny guy. It's just the situations he's put in are funny, which is what I like, is that not every character is making jokes all the time, but the movie can still be funny. That's what I think James Gunn is best at in this movie. Anyway, I do like the fact that James Gunn was able to make the movie funny without having every character make jokes 24/7 the entire way through, you know. I did like that, you know. It's what makes this movie really great. It was really lighthearted. It knew when to be serious and when to be comedic, you know. And on with the negatives. First, we have, you know, a bit of a nitpick, you know. I don't like the fact that the engineer was race changed. Maria Gabriela de Faria. The Faria or something. She's Venezuelan, and I'm not sure if the engineer in DC Comics is. I'm pretty sure she's white. I can't really tell. It's kind of hard to tell, especially because she is a cyborg, I guess. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Because you look at this, you're like, okay, she's white. You know, you can't really tell. This could be a race change. I don't know if this was a race change. I don't know. And I feel like if you can't tell, I feel like it's not that big of a deal. If it's not that explicitly said what her race is, I feel like it's not that big of a deal unless it looks like drastically different, which it does in a different way though. It does in a different way because in the comics, she had these like kind of wire dreadlocks. But yeah, these look like really cool. I like the design of these, like with the headdress. You know, it really looks cool. But in the movie, they tried to do that, I guess, but they didn't really commit to it being like wires. It was just like her hair, which, you know, I get some people were, you know, upset about. And I think they could have done a better job at doing that, to be honest, you know. But I don't think it's terrible. I don't think it's terrible. I think they could have done better, but I don't think it's the worst thing. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Also, I think they made the right decision of making her not fully Silver, you know, because of unfortunately, the new Fantastic Four has a female Silver Surfer, which, you know, I don't know if it would confuse people, but I think there would be some issues with that, you know. Two female Silver beings, and what the yo, I just realized she's like completely naked in that. That's crazy. Yeah, I think there would have been some problems with having two Silver women antagonists be in two different comic book movies in the same year, in the same month, by the way. I think there would be some issue with that, and I wonder if Marvel has something to do with that. I wonder if they did that on purpose. I wonder some conspiracy, you know. I don't know. Now on to the last 2 points, which are pretty significant. For one, the message his parents sent and got exposed to the public. That plot point was dropped I think it was dropped way too soon. Because at the end, you know, when he exposes Lex in return, and everyone's like, oh, Superman's a hero. But that message is still true. That's what they sent with him. So I feel like they kind of brushed that aside, like, really quickly. I don't know. I don't think that was a good decision. It felt kind of weird that everyone just suddenly forgot about the message. Especially when Perry White was asking Jimmy, like, how long have Superman and Lois been together? I feel like that was probably a moment to bring that up, the whole the harem thing. I think that was probably the best time to bring that up, and it wasn't brought up. So, you know, I don't know. That probably should have been a bigger plot point, but what definitely should have been a bigger plot point was the fact that at the beginning of the movie, it said that Superman's fight with the Hammer of Baravia. I think that him losing that battle should have been a bigger plot point. I feel like that could have, like, kind of tied in to his self-doubt about himself, which was explored in this movie. I feel like that should have been like a bigger plot point to like get deeper into that aspect of the movie. And speaking of this whole having self-doubt, I feel like that interview with him being angry, I feel like that should have been after he got exposed, because he's having all this self-doubt about himself, you know, like, oh, what is my purpose? And that's when he starts to get a little angry at things. You know, Superman doesn't really, or shouldn't really, get angry too often or too easily. But now that he's kind of questioning his whole purpose on Earth, I feel like that would have been the time to have him be a little bit more angry and emotional. I don't hate what they did in the movie, but I feel like having that scene where he's getting angry at Lois during the interview should have been put after he got exposed. I think that would have made more sense, you know, have like a more drastic shift in his personality. No, I don't know if that would mess up like his whole, I guess, conflict with Lois. I don't know if that would kind of mess that up in some way, shape, or form. I'm not too sure. But overall, I think that they executed Superman's whole arc in this movie pretty well, but I would have liked to see there be a more drastic shift in his personality after he got exposed. I think that would have been a lot better structurally. It would have been a little bit better, but you know, I'm not a writer, so I don't know. But overall, this movie was pretty good, and I'd give it an 8 out of 10. I mean, what can I say? You know, the Superman movie has brought DC back from the grave, you know. Like I said at the beginning, I was, you know, really worried that if this movie didn't succeed, then DC movies would just be over, you know. You know, things like Green Lantern, things like the DCEU have really set DC movies really, like, way far back, especially in the modern day, now that people are realizing that, you know, movies like The Man of Steel weren't really all that good. They weren't received that, like, well back in the day, but now that we're getting things like this new Superman movie, it's made people realize that a more brooding, more stoic, more serious, and even more violent Superman isn't the best direction for the character. You know, I could make a whole video on the problems with Snyder's vision of Batman, Superman, and the wider DC universe, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I really like this movie. Has allowed people to actually see what Superman should be like, and not have these kind of like the Snyder lens, you know, like the gritty reboot lens, you know. And I'm glad that gritty reboots are a thing of the past now, because not every hero needs a gritty reboot, you know. I guess Batman, it works for Batman. For Superman, not so much. For Wonder Woman, maybe. I think for Wonder Woman specifically, I think you need like a blend of the two, I think. But overall, I am glad that the era of gritty reboots is over, you know. this movie is a testament to that because it's pretty good. DC is back, and for one, I'm happy. I am happy. You've been watching Lowhand. I've been Lowhand, and let me know what you're like.